Hello, everybody. We're going to let everybody come in here because we've got a full house tonight. So we'll give everybody a minute or two to get in here, and then we will get started. As everybody's coming in, just a few housekeeping items, and I'll say this again. Dan and I will probably remind you guys throughout. You're going to see Q&A and chat here. And let me make sure that the chat is enabled for everybody. Because sometimes, yeah, it tends to default. Okay, I think I got that all set. We've got Q&A and chat, and we welcome your questions, but please put your questions in the Q&A. We might throw out some questions for you and break our own rules and say, hey, why don't you put this in chat kind of thing. But otherwise, please put it in the Q&A. And what's nice about the Q&A is it gets captured. And also, if you want to ask a question anonymously, you can do that. You'll see there's a little box there, and you can click it. So that's what's nice about Q&A as well. And it just helps us as we're manning, looking at your questions, we can just look in one place. So we would appreciate that. So we are at 1 minute after. We still have a few people rolling in here. Nice job. You guys are all on time. It's great. All right. It is 3:02 where I am because I'm in Seattle, but most of you guys, it's 6:02 like it is for Dan. So I am here with my colleague, Dan Bisig. I know I've seen some of you guys when I've been on webinars before with Matt Carpenter, one of our other colleagues. You might not know Dan, so we're going to do some quick intros here. And then we're going to get into the topic. And I see Brian is on here. So hello, Brian.
Hello, Brian.
Thanks for your message. Okay, so for people that don't know me, I'm Peg Keough. I am the Director of Education at CAP. I've been doing this work, working with families for over a decade. Used to have my own business doing it. And actually was lucky enough, fortunate enough to beta test CAP's software back when it first came out. So I was part of building it, which was wonderful. And I used it in my business. And so I knew the CAP guys really well through the years. And then last year, it was just a good time for me to have some teammates and not be going solo. I was getting a little burned out, and CAP needed somebody like me. So it was kind of the perfect marriage. So that's my background. The other thing that's probably the most important thing about me is that I have twins and I've been through this process. So parent to parent, I get it. I've been here. I've done these forms 8 times with my kids. So I know it's a little difficult. And so I feel your pain, but I'm here to tell you, you'll get through it. Just a lot of deep breaths. So Dan, hey, why don't you just take a couple minutes, introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, so welcome everybody. Real excited to be with you this evening. So my name is Dan Bisig. I have been with CAP now for about 6 months, but I've been using the software for 3 years, thanks to my friend Peg, who introduced it to me. And just love the software and its ability to help families when it comes to affordability. 16 years as an independent educational consultant, and then 25 years before that as a financial planner. So I know a little bit about paying for college, and love that we're going to talk about this evening to help you all out.
Yeah. All right. So let's get started here. So what I'm going to do is and we already have a question, Dan. So Dan's going to be in there manning, and he's going to interrupt me when there's some questions that we want to share with the whole gang. So let me make sure that I share the correct screen here because I've got my deck open and my other thing open. Okay. All right, so let's hop in here and get this show on the road. So again, we both mentioned College Aid Pro, and really our mission is literally to end the student loan crisis by empowering you guys to shop smarter for college and actually filling out financial aid forms correctly as part of this process. And so that's really what we want to do tonight. So there's the happy couple. There's Dan and I. We're here with you guys tonight. So real quick, just very quick disclaimer. Basically, we're here to walk you through the FAFSA and CSS. Obviously, you guys are submitting these forms. You're responsible for the content of what you submit. We're not liable for any errors, but we're going to try and guide you on what's the best way to do this You're going to hear me say this a couple times. It's your form. So if you disagree with anything we say, you absolutely do what works for you. But we're going to point out places where people tend to make mistakes and just give you our take on how to effectively submit these forms. Okay, so now that I did a yucky kind of legal thing, I know this, I do a lot of webinars, and this content is really the least sexy out of all of them, right? It's financial aid form. So for me, it's a little fun, but I'm kind of a nerd in this space. Maybe it's a little fun for Dan too. But for most people, it's not fun, right? And we know. So I'm going to do my best to really open your eyes, but I really kind of want to start. I'm a whale person, so everybody's got to look at this picture, and maybe that if you showed up a little bit rushed from a day at work or whatever's going on, maybe that puts you at ease a little bit. And I'm here to tell you, when you're doing these forms, you can take breaks, you can save and come back later. You can actually go back and resubmit the FAFSA and the CSS. They're telling me that's going to be an option. It's not showing up now, but they tell me in about a week. So I just want to tell you, take a lot of deep breaths and you'll get through it. It's not too difficult. And if you show up relaxed, it'll make your life a lot easier. So let's dig in here. So we're going to cover the FAFSA first, the free application for federal student aid. So pretty much every school on your child's list is going to require this. So we are not going to get in the nuts and bolts of the FAFSA and how the EFC is calculated. That's a whole nother webinar. But the key takeaways here are to get into your FAFSA, your child's FAFSA, because it's actually their FAFSA. You're going to need to get a federal student aid ID, FSA ID for yourself and for your child. And your child can do it themselves. So you see the URL here. Oh, and another thing I want to share, because this will come up in Q&A. Tomorrow, we will send you a recording. We will send you these slides in PDF form, so you don't have to hurry and write down that URL if you don't have your FSA ID yet. You will get this tomorrow. We're also going to send you a nice PDF of the 7 most common mistakes on the FAFSA and the CSS. So we're gonna set you up with the follow-up. So if you have a spouse and they couldn't be here, they can watch it and you'll be good to go. So key takeaways here on the FAFSA is that you need to get that FSA ID and password. And if you didn't, you can even Google it tonight, or you can, I just said don't jot it down, but you can if you want, if you're stressed about that, because it does take a couple days to process. And so your child needs to get one, and one parent, only one parent, and you're e-signing the FAFSA with it, okay? The other thing you're going to make up when you get in the FAFSA, and I don't want this to stress you out, they have something called a save key. And you just make up a word with numbers. And that's another thing you're going to input once you get in there. So when you create these things, put them somewhere safe. Like Dan's recommended, take a picture with your phone or whatever you want. So you've captured it, because you're going to be doing this FAFSA every year. I have a password protected password sheet, and that's how I keep track of stuff. So whatever works for you, but just realize you are going to need that every year. Okay. So now let's talk about this. And this is part of what's on that PDF we're going to send you tomorrow in the follow-up. So these are the mistakes that most people make, and they can really hurt your financial aid, right? Basically, an expected family contribution gets calculated and it can raise it basically. So you do not want to include retirement assets on these forms. So 401k, 403b, IRA, Roth IRA. I always get that in the Q&A. Well, what about my Roth IRA? That's a retirement account as well. Pensions, all of that, those balances should not be part of the question that's going to come up on the FAFSA that I'm going to show you in a minute. Your primary home equity, that means the home you live in. Not going to ask about it. It's not included. Other real estate is, but not your primary home. That sometimes gets included. If you have a business, the value of your business is not included if it's a family-owned business with less than 100 full-time employees. So do not include that in that question if you fall under that category. If you have 529s, which is very common, and you as the parent are the owner, you are not going to include that as your child's asset. It's going to be your asset. It's very logical that you would think it's your child's because the money is being earmarked for them, but it's actually an account that you still own under the IRS rules. So make sure that goes on the question that I'm going to show you in a minute of your assets, not your child's. And I'm going to show you number 5 in a minute. I'm going to give you a screenshot on it, but you definitely want to mark yes for work study. Even if you're not sure, just you want that option in case you change your mind, even if you don't think you want it. And then number 6, this EFC is not necessarily going to be exactly what you pay. It could be more. That's not really a mistake. It's just something to share with you. And then as always, you don't want to miss deadlines. So with these forms, you want to find out when your child's school has their priority financial aid deadline. And you want to make sure you're getting it in by then, or else the college, you might be in that second batch of need-based aid that comes out, and that could really sting, right? That could really hurt. All right. So now let's jump in here. I have done.
Meg, I want to say something real quick.
Absolutely.
Couple of folks have put things into the chat. Please make sure that you put your questions into the Q&A for us. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to do screenshots of the FAFSA because the FAFSA sometimes doesn't work so well. Sometimes you get that dreaded little revolving circle. So if you get in there and it's not moving as quickly as other websites, don't think you did anything wrong. It just might be a high traffic time. And I don't want to do a webinar where you guys are sitting here waiting for the FAFSA to move. So this is a better way for me to show you the key highlights of the FAFSA. So this shows you exactly what I was talking about before. You see this question in red, definitely mark yes. Even if you're sure I don't want my child to work, because I've had this situation, your life could change. And at some schools, I've called them and said, why wasn't this child awarded work study? And it's like, yeah, well, they marked no on the FAFSA. So just mark yes. You're not obligated to do work study. You might not even be awarded it, and you're not guaranteed a job. But so we recommend that you mark yes. You're also going to see these dependency questions. For most families, they're going to mark none of the above, but these are asked because some students will end up being an independent student, meaning the parent's financial information is not shared. So just look through them. This is toward the beginning of the FAFSA. And if they're not, none of them are applicable, which is common, just mark none of the above and you're good to go. When you do that, then the student is considered a dependent student and you're going to get this page, and you want to make sure you click. Remember, this is the student's FAFSA. So when it says they're talking to the student throughout this form. They're going to say your parents. I means the student when you're submitting the FAFSA. So keep that in mind. You've got to mark this, or your child's got to mark this. If you mark the other one, you're going to get a message that says, this could really hurt your aid. So I just didn't want this question to kind of throw you off, like maybe you had a choice. You really don't if you want to get aid from these schools. Okay. Now, this is an important question that they're going to ask, and I want to make sure everybody's clear on this. When you look at the first half up here, just read it, and it's pretty clear. Include the other dependent children of parents if the parents are providing over half their support between the dates that they say. So if you have you have 2 kids and they both live with you and you're a married couple, then you'd be putting 1 there. The second half of this is, do you have anybody else in your home? Like maybe you're taking care of a grandparent and they live there and you're providing over half the support. That would be another person in your household. So fill in these 2 buckets correctly. And then when you get to the next page, they're actually going to say, hey, this is your household size. And the bigger your household, actually the better in financial aid, because you have more mouths to feed and everything else, right? The second half of this is very important. It's the number of students in school. Now, not parents, and it says it there in bold, do not include parents. So if you're getting a graduate degree or you're getting your bachelor's degree right now, that's awesome, but you can't include yourself. It's something I would share with the colleges, absolutely, but you don't put it in this question. So I don't want you to forget, say you have an older child that's in college. That's part of it. Don't just think of your younger kids that are still going to be at home. So fill that out, whatever the applicable number is for your family. Okay, now the next piece, this is when you get to the income part, and you're going to notice that if you have a senior, which I think most people on here probably have seniors, although we might have some parents that are just trying to get an early view of this, might have some junior parents, but for you senior parents, all the questions are going to be about tax year 2021. And on that slide that I showed earlier, it referenced prior year. So you're going to notice this, everything on the FAFSA, and you see right here for 2021, what was your tax return? What did you file? So everything's 2021. So when you get to the point where you're going to actually put in your adjusted gross income and the taxes you paid, they're going to offer you this IRS data retrieval tool. We call it DRT. So actually within CAP, we have different takes on this and if you should use it or not. There's no right or wrong answer. So ultimately, it's your decision. There's some pros and cons of using it and not using it, just like most things in life, right? So what it does, if you say yes, and down here you say proceed to the IRS, it's going to actually go to another site and it's going to pull your 2021 tax information and populate it right into the FAFSA. And what it's going to say, at least as of last year, transferred from the IRS. It's not going to say 100,000 if that's what your adjusted gross income was. So just keep that in mind. When I work with families, I usually say, hey, the first go around, don't use it. And then you can always go in and resubmit it after it's processed with DRT. But then there's other people on the CAP team that are like, yeah, we usually, walk our families through using it. When I'm trying to help people and I can't see what imported from the IRS, that's where I struggle with it. But it's kind of up to you. And if you try and do it and it doesn't work, don't stress. I'm going to show you the manual fields because it's a little finicky sometimes. So like if your address that you enter doesn't perfectly match what's on the tax return, it might kick it out in an error. So you might end up doing a manual anyways. So don't worry about it. And I'll school you up here on how to do it. But if you look on the left here, I've got 2 bullets, verification being one of them. So what happens after you submit the FAFSA is supposedly a random number of students get what's called verified. So they reach out and they say, hey, send us your tax return or a tax transcript, which is why I have that there. So one thing I do want you to jot down is order free online tax transcript. So just do that over this weekend. It's free. Make sure the URL is the IRS, because when you Google it, there could be, these crazy people that are doing stuff on the internet. Make sure, because you're going to put in your social security number, make sure you're on an IRS site. Request the online, because if you do get verified, even if you do the DRT and you happen to get verified, you'll have it and you won't have to worry about ordering it. But anecdotally, if you do this through the IRS, you're supposedly less likely to be verified, which makes sense because the data didn't come from you, it came from the IRS. So again, up to you how you want to move forward, but we just wanted you to understand what that is and how it works. So if you decide not to use the DRT or the DRT is giving you an error message, then you're going to manually enter your information. And by the way, if you look up here, you can see how the FAFSA flows, student demographics all the way down. We're on parent financials now. You can always go back and look at other pages. It's not a problem, but it does kind of show you where you are in the process. So here's where you're going to enter your adjusted gross income. They very clearly tell you on the 1040 line 11. So you've got to have your tax return to do both of these forms. You want to have your tax return sitting next to you and your W-2s, right? Next page, they're going to say, if both parents are on it, they're going to say, how much did you earn from work? And if you look, this sometimes trips people up a bit. For most people, it's going to be line 1, your wages on your 1040. But some people, as they say in the little box here, you might have a Schedule 1, you might have something on line 3 or 6, and you might have a K1. If none of that means anything to you, don't stress about it. That means it's just not applicable to you. If you don't have a K1, and when you look through your return, you don't have a Schedule 1, then you're just going to put 1040 line 1. Those are your wages, and you're going to do it for each parent. If you're divorced, only the custodial parent is submitting this, so you're just going to be putting it for one parent, okay? Then they're going to ask for a little bit additional information. They're going to ask how much you're paying in federal income tax. That actually decreases your EFC because it's money that you're not realizing because you're paying the government. So this is a big one. Use line 22. A lot of people will look and say, hey, but there's another line below that's my total tax. Follow the instructions and just plug in line 22. That's what they're looking for. Then there's a few other questions. Some of these very well might not be applicable. I'm going to put a little arrow on the ones that we see the most for families. But if you have combat pay, if you have education credits, definitely read through these and look at the instructions. Just go to your tax return. If you have that, go ahead and pop it on the line for 2021. So the untaxed portions of IRAs and pensions, that does come up sometimes. And this is a big one. If you're self-employed and you've got a SEP or a simple or a Keough plan, you're going to have a Schedule 1 and you're going to have some lines on there. So you're going to have to put that in. Some people have tax exempt interest, which is the last one. So just really carefully read through it. If any of it's applicable to you, just pop it on that line. More information here. If you paid child support, they want to hear about that, right? And if you have, and again, this is parents, remember, all of this is the parent. We're not on student financials yet. So if you had co-op education program or you had federal work study, this is not the student. Now the student's going to get the same questions, all these same questions. So I'm not going to go through all those pages because they're going to be the same questions. But for the student, if you have an older child and you're doing this for the second year, you might have some federal work study to put on there for your child in the student financial section. Then there's this concept of untaxed income. So if you've been on our previous webinars, you've heard us talk about this, right? So the big ones on here are if you're a divorced family and you've received child support, you've got to disclose that. That's not taxed, and they put it into the equation. The other one is a lot of people are saving for retirement, which is a good thing. I'm a financial planner by background, just like Dan. So kudos to you. You should be saving, but that gets added back in. That's going to change next year, but this year it's still getting added back into income. So follow the instructions there on your W-2, box 12. You'll see these letters. D means 401k. That's the amount you put in. So whatever it is, add them together if there's two parents submitting this and put that on that line. And anything else that comes up, other untaxed income, there's in financial aid, there's things that Uncle Sam doesn't tax, but the colleges look at and say, oh, you have disability benefits, you have workman's comp. We're going to look at that because that's money coming into the household. So that's how you fill out that page. Again, the students have the same page, but students typically don't have much of this, but you'll see the same thing. So now we're on the parent assets. 3 questions about parent assets. Checking and savings, cash accounts. And that's literally the day you're submitting. Now, I don't think a lot of parents go and look up their portfolio. You can, especially, I didn't look at what the market did today, but it's been a little crazy lately. If the market's dropping, you should look at the day, right? Because technically it's the real-time value. So that's checking and savings. That doesn't change much, right? As far as interest and all that. The next question is asking for parent investments. So this is where 529s that you own for all your kids, not just the child that's doing the FAFSA, for all your kids, that goes in there. If grandma owns a 529, that's not on the FAFSA. If non-custodial parent owns a 529, that's not on the FAFSA, only the custodial parents. And if you have other real estate. So if you own a condo in Maui or whatever it is, that's not a business, it's just other real estate, the equity of that real estate, the market value minus any liabilities, that all gets put into the second question for the FAFSA. Then, like I said earlier, if you have a business or a farm, and it falls under the definition of family owned, less than 100 full-time employees, that value is left out. If it's not under that definition, then you will have to disclose the value of your business. And with these forms, you always want to be honest, but you don't want to overestimate. You know, we'll talk about that with your primary home and the CSS profile. So be honest, but lowest defensible number. If you have to put your business value, a lot of businesses, like for consultants and stuff, they actually have no value because it's really the person who's doing all the work. They don't have inventory, they don't have office space. So keep that in mind. You don't have to put a value there. It might be 0 if all of a sudden you, God forbid, were disabled and couldn't work in your business. So keep that in mind. Oh, I had my little boxes and I forgot. So just read this. It's here. And there's little question marks everywhere. that can help too. If you're still kind of confused, click on the question mark for some more help. Okay, so student financials, as I said, very similar. So we're not going to go through all of those. One thing I want to point out here, because I didn't do this on the other slides, is you see up here, you can navigate the FAFSA up here. It should be auto saving throughout, but once in a while you could just go up. I do that when I'm in here, just click save FAFSA form, right? And then it'll give you this message that it automatically saved. But that's how you can navigate up here. And then you'll get to the last page, and you'll have to click on the terms and conditions. And that's when you're going to need that FSA ID and password for the student and for whichever parent got the ID. And that's how you're electronically filing the FAFSA. And then you're going to get a confirmation and either print a PDF or actually print it in paper, whatever you want to do there, because you get a confirmation number. It lists all the schools, and it actually tells you your EFC. It's a very transparent process with the FAFSA. So I would keep that in case the school says, hey, we didn't get it, then you've got proof that you submitted that before their deadline. So that's what I would recommend on that piece. Also, I'm hearing from some of the colleagues at CAP that have already helped some families with this, that they're actually sending out an email this year with the EFC, which they haven't done in the past. So they might do that as well. Okay. So that is the FAFSA. So we can take a deep breath. We're through one form, and I'm going to check my time here. I got to keep going. So hopefully I'm not going too fast here, but I want to take some time here on the CSS profile. So College Board, you know College Board if your child's taking APs, PSAT, SAT. So they administer the CSS profile as well. Okay. So same kind of slide. You guys can review this. You're going to get the slide deck. The key takeaway from here is I've got the URL up here, cssprofile.collegeboard.org. Okay. So that's where you're going to go to actually do the CSS profile. You're going to create a username. Is an email address. They've changed that this year. And if you have an old login, they're going to have you convert it to an email address and then your password. And that's how you're going to get in. Same sort of thing here, 7 critical mistakes. Again, this is going to be on the PDF. I'm going to just highlight the main ones here. Number 1 is a biggie, and I'm going to say this over and over again when we get in the form in a minute. If the question is not required, we recommend you leave it. And I'll explain when we get in there the rationale behind this. But again, if you're, I've done this with parents for years. If you're not comfortable with that, then just fill it out the way you want, right? It's your form to fill out. We want you to be sleeping at night. That's the whole point of this webinar, to help you guys get through this journey. And this, a lot of times, is one of the hardest parts for people, is submitting these forms. So you will see that it's going to say required, and I'm going to show you some of these screenshots. When it comes to asking about your home, so this form is different than the FAFSA. They're going to ask about the home you live in, your primary home, and you do not want to overvalue it. You don't want to lie, but you don't want to overvalue your home. So Dan, if you don't mind, well, you know what? I'll wait till I get to that part of the form because it'll be more meaningful. I'm going to give you a link to a federal housing calculator. That might be a place where you can get a lower value, but.
Do you want me to go ahead and put that in right now? I can.
Go ahead and put it in, and then when we get to the page, I'll have Dan put it in again, because then it'll be there, but you guys can grab that out of the chat. So cool. Number 3, I already told you, 529s are going to go under parent assets. We're going to talk, number 4, I'm going to hit these all in the form. So, but then you'll have this as a list, as a good reminder. Okay. So the rest of these I'm going to actually talk about. So, all right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go hop in the CSS profile. So I'm not concerned, knock on wood, the CSS profile being slow. I don't want you guys to have a visual, because I think that helps with the stress too, if you're seeing it. So when you go in, you're going to put in name, address, what's your marital status, that kind of stuff. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, so I don't need to walk you through that part. But then you're going to be on your dashboard, and this is what your dashboard looks like. And you're going to put in the different schools that require the CSS profile. Remember, the lion's share of schools in this country do not require it. So if you go to put in University of Colorado in Boulder, it's not going to find anything, because that school does not require the CSS profile. So if it doesn't come up, that means it doesn't require it. If you are in our MyCap software, you can look that up, right? So I've plugged in some schools here just so you have a visual. This is what your dashboard looks like. And it's always going to have, if you're divorced, my sample family is divorced because I wanted to be able to show that for people that are divorced. You're going to have this on your dashboard too. And they're asking for the non-custodial parents information because unlike the FAFSA, where only the custodial parent submits with the student, the CSS, the student submits it with the custodial parent and the non-custodial parent submits a second. It's called a non-custodial parent CSS profile to College Board. So they both go separately and it's private. You don't see your ex's information, they don't see yours. So it is important to provide that because most schools will look at both parents and if they don't get them, then they can't award you endowment money, which is what we're trying to help you get, right? That's what you want to grab and get these discounts. So that's your dashboard. So let me hop back over to my slides for a minute, and then we're actually going to go in there. So let's look here. And I'm not showing you this part, so that's why I want to do this slide. And I got a little tripped up on this when I was doing it, playing around with it. When you get to the part where you're adding your kids' schools or they're adding their schools, you can click the college program name like I did, and then just type in the school. Don't type in the word university because it's a weird search and it starts pulling up all these universities that are A's and you'll have a hard time finding it. So just leave the word university out and that will save you a little bit of angst that I went through trying to figure out how to make it work. The other thing is the CSS profile is not free like the FAFSA. There's a $9 registration fee and each school is $16 for College Board to send the CSS to each one of the schools that you and your child request. So certain families will have those fees waived. So there's a page where they ask you some of these things. If you're on free and reduced lunch, click that box, right? If your adjusted gross income, which you're going to share with them, is 100,000 or less, you're going to get this message that I have over here on the right that says, based on your information, you're eligible for a fee waiver. So when you get to the end, I'm going to show you a sample where all the charges are lining up and you need to pull out your credit card at the end. You won't have to pay. So the 100,000 is a new thing. So that's a wonderful thing for families, right? So helps alleviate a little bit of the costs in this whole crazy process. So wanted to point that out because that's a change going forward. A couple areas, like I said earlier, if it's not required, really recommend that you leave it out. But these two, just me personally, I really recommend. They're going to ask for your social security numbers. They're going to ask for your child. They don't need it. Don't supply it. It's just in this world of hacking, you just shouldn't share your social security number anywhere you don't need to. It's not going to affect the process at all. So I recommend you don't fill that in. And then also they're going to ask parents, like, what's your highest level of education? Again, less is more. If you tell them we both have graduate degrees, they're going to start thinking, oh, this family's affluent, da, 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 da. That's not necessarily good for you. You're going to be honest on the form and share your financials, but you don't need to overshare. So those are two, and I just feel pretty strongly about not sharing. Again, if you would like to, that's your choice, but we recommend you leave that stuff out. So a couple visuals before we get in, and you're going to see this. But here's the section where they're asking about income. That should kind of look familiar. It's like the FAFSA. They're asking for the adjusted gross income. And you see here, see that where I put the box? It's required. So you got to put that in. When you get to the Schedule 1, they've got a yes or no there. It's not required. So you don't have to answer this. And I will tell you, because I did this, if you mark no and then say, oh, I'm yes, or I don't want to answer this, you can't toggle, but you can toggle between them, but you can't take it off. So if you're not going to answer it, just make sure you don't click one of the boxes because that's going to throw you off. I learned that the hard way. So, okay, well, that's at the end here. So now I'm going to actually pop back in here, and hopefully this is going to be helpful because you guys can actually see this in real time, and it's not so bad. If you have older kids and you've been in here before, this is going to look a little different to you, actually a lot different. They've changed it quite a bit, but if you're a new parent, this is all you know, so it's all good. So once you're here, like I said earlier, you're on your dashboard, you're in here, you can go in and out and save. So you just hit continue with application. So I've gone through all the sections. So they say complete, but I could still go in and edit any of these answers. And I'm going to go in and do that with you. You might not have 17 sections. This is a divorced family. So there's a section about child support in here. So don't worry about the 17. As you answer questions, there's some skip logic, right? There's some places that might pop up for your family that don't pop up for another family. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down here and we're going to start in parent employment, okay? I'm going to scroll through here and show you this stuff. So MJ in this situation is the parent, right? So this is a question, but it's not required. So you really don't need to click anything here. You can leave that and move on. They are asking, has mom been in the armed forces? You got to say yes or no. Say no. If that's the case, if it's yes, say yes, and that's going to create other questions. This one, and Dan and I talked about this, and he's in agreement. This one, I'm going to go against what I'm telling you. It's not required, but if you are a dislocated worker, and by the way, if you want to understand any of these anymore in depth, just click on it. There's some nice explanations. So don't forget about clicking on the little caret. This one, if you are a dislocated worker, we do recommend you mark that because that's going to put you in some buckets. That's a waiver bucket and different buckets. So I would click that if that's applicable to your family. Then they're asking for your occupation. They don't really need to know if you're an investment banker, you're a teacher, or whatever you are. They're not requiring it, so I wouldn't share it. Here again, more questions. Are you going to draw on Social Security? All this stuff. This really does not affect an EFC. So again, I would not click it. This next question is very different, and this is a change from last year. Something I'm not very pleased about, and I think a lot of practitioners are not. You notice this is a required question, and they're asking about the balances in mom's retirement accounts. You might be thinking, why the heck are they asking this? Because, Peg, you've told us not to include our retirement assets, and you're spot on correct. And that's what's really hard about this question. But it is a required question, and I'm going to tell you, you need to be honest, right? If my kids were still in school, there's a way I would handle this, which I will keep to myself. But unfortunately, it is what it is. But keep this in mind. If you've been good at saving and you've got big balances and you get awards back down the road, you absolutely should be talking to these schools and saying to them, are you including any of my retirement money? Because that is not supposed to be on the table. So unfortunately, they made this a required question, and it is what it is. Okay. Now we're on to questions about the non-custodial parent, because my family is a divorced family. Those are all required, so you plug that in. They did say if something is required and you don't know, then you just put unknown, right? That's asking about the divorce. Like here, this is asking for the ex's occupation and employer. If I were you, you might know that for your ex, you probably do. As I said earlier, your ex is going to be submitting a non-custodial form. Just let them submit it so there isn't any discrepancy. I mean, it's just cleaner. That's my recommendation. That's our recommendation. Do what works best for you. But I think for a lot of people, especially if the relationship isn't super perfect, that might actually avoid some friction as well. So, and they say in there, you can write unknown if it's required. This one, again, I would not touch at all. They're asking, what is non-custodial parent going to pay? I would leave that alone. They're going to ask the non-custodial parent, let the non-custodial parent share. And then if you have a written agreement of any sort, you got to mark yes or no there because that's required. Email address. So this was on the dashboard. But if you plug it in here, then it'll show up on the dashboard. You do want to share this because they need to get that non-custodial CSS profile to the other parent, or else you're going to have issues with getting endowment money. Okay, so now, hold on a second. I think I'm going to skip a few sections here, and I'm going to scroll down to, because I'm trying to hit the stuff that's the most stressful here. All right, let's get down to parent expenses. And then I'm going to take you through the rest of the form. We're on the home stretch. Okay, so parent expenses. So they're asking here, do you have medical or dental expenses not covered by insurance? This is an important thing to share with the schools, but here I would just leave it. I clicked no because, as I told you, you guys are going to learn from me. Just if you're not going to answer, don't click anything. You want to share this with the colleges, but you want to share it in an appeal. You don't want to share it now. You want to get, your child gets in, you get a financial aid award letter, and then you go back to the school and say, here's some stuff I want to share with you to get them to what we call exercise professional judgment and hopefully change your package for the better. So that's our recommendation on that one. Same thing, they ask about different types of debt. This is not a required question, so you can leave it blank. Then we're going into the, see, we're moving through the section. So now I'm just going to check my time here. We're in parent assets, okay? So they're going to, this is required. You've got to disclose as of today or close to today, do your best. What do you have in checking and savings? Then they're asking you here what for investments. And if you're not sure what they're asking about, just look on the list. They got it right here for you. You're not going to include your home, your business. They're telling you do not include retirement accounts, but then they're sharing with you what you need to include. And I want to point out this non-retirement annuities. That is required on the CSS profile. It is not an asset on the FAFSA. So that's a difference between those two. So please keep that in mind. So you're saying, yes, these are all required. So if you have other real estate, I'm going to click it so you guys can see the boxes. I'm going to say this person has a business. I'm just going to say no to farm because those are similar questions. So this one is a funny one. And I've never had a parent. Last year, it just said, what's the value? It didn't say yes or no. And I've heard different opinions of what they're even asking here, and none of them make sense to me. And honestly, what they have in this deal doesn't make sense to me. So I don't know why a parent would take their money, a 529, if they still own it. And if your child has an UGMA or an UTMA, which you would know what that is, if you have it, that'll ring a bell. That's your child's asset. That wouldn't go here. So I've never, and Dan and I talked about this before, he's never had a family that would say yes to this and put a value on that question. Okay, so now we're into the market value of your investments. Again, if you're not sure what they're asking about, click on there, put that in there. That's the value as of now, the current value. I said yes to real estate. How many properties? You say you have one. Then they're going to ask you details, but they don't require these answers. So you don't need to answer it, right? You can just flip through here. If you want to, if that's going to bother you, then absolutely do it. It's totally up to you. They're going to, and I don't think I've shared this yet. After you submit the CSS profile, these colleges are going to reach out to you and ask for your W-2s and your tax returns. If you have a business, if you own real estate, you're renting a property, they're going to see all of that on your tax return. So you're not lying. You're not trying to hide information. You're just giving them what they're requiring you to give. And you're trying to be a little bit in the driver's seat to have a conversation once your child is admitted. Because the colleges, they like being in the driver's seat. And I think it's important to sometimes share the wheel. That's what I said to Dan, right? So same thing with businesses. You said you have a business. They're asking the number of businesses, but it's not a required question. So leave it blank. If you're a sole proprietor, you've got a Schedule C, they're going to see it. If you have an S Corp, you've got 1120S tax return, they're going to see it. So don't worry about that you're hiding things. They're going to see it and they're going to take it into account for sure. You're sharing your income. They're going to see all of that. Okay, so look where we are now. We're in the student. Now we've moved through this. We're in the students area now. So PEG is the student and they're going to ask these questions. These are all required. So did the student complete a tax return? I'm going to say yes. If your child didn't, because they just made a few bucks mowing lawns, whatever's applicable, put it on there. And there'll be slightly different questions. They completed a tax return. Was it a 1040? You pick the drop down. Most kids, their filing status is single. And then they're going to start asking you questions from this. So you're going to have those tax returns handy, as I said. Adjusted gross income, line 11, just like the FAFSA. And then federal income taxes, line 22. For a lot of kids, they didn't know any tax. That's going to be 0 for a lot of kids. Then they're going to ask you all these different lines on your 1040 and different forms. It's not required. They're going to see these tax returns. So just leave it blank. They're going to know, they're going to see it. It's less stressful for you, and you can avoid, mixing up the numbers by accident, right? None of these pages are required, so we recommend you just flip through there. Now we're back to required questions. This is very similar to the FAFSA. How much did you earn from work? And one thing I didn't mention, when you do the FAFSA, you should jot down these answers if you didn't use the DRT, because they're going to match, right? If you do the CSS 2 weeks later, your asset values technically will be different if you have money in the market, but your income won't. So just, you can jot down earnings from work, mom, earnings from work, dad, so that you've got it all right there. But this is the student, so that's how much they made. Now we're on to additional student income in that section. This is not required. So any of these that aren't required, you don't really need to stress about it. A lot of this isn't even applicable to kids anyways. Then they do this, which is another thing that's a little bit of a head scratcher, but they're asking about you projecting income for your child, or your child that's doing this in summer 2023 and school year. Basically, these answers should be 0 unless you know. If you have an internship that you landed and it's 30 hours a week and it's 25 bucks an hour that your child got, kudos to them, and you know what they're going to make, then absolutely be honest, put it in there. If they're going to look for a good job, you have no idea what they're going to make. And they shouldn't, this information is not part of the EFC calculation anyway. So it's required. If you don't know, put zeros and move on, right? Because you really don't know. And that was on the critical mistakes. Don't inflate this. Oh, well, he's gotten great summer job, so he's going to make, $7,000. That's only going to hurt you. And if he doesn't, then you're stuck, right? So just, we recommend that if you don't know for sure, you want to put 0. So if there's any slide in here, if you're kind of getting sleepy, which I'm sure you are, you kind of smack your face a little and wake up for this one, because this question, every parent I've ever talked to doesn't know how to answer this first question. How much does Peg, which is the student, expect to receive from the following sources? And they say, how much are the parents going to contribute? You want to be careful with this question. Again, you don't want to lie, but you don't want to overestimate this number. I've had some colleges tell me, if you have an EFC of 40,000 and you put, oh, I just got this big bonus, I think I can do 50,000. They're going to up your EFC to 50,000. So, for a lot of families, if you have a $40,000 529, divide it by 4 and put 10,000 there. So be honest, but don't overinflate, and definitely don't put more than your EFC, because you basically increased your EFC. These other questions, if you have a scholarship or grant, which is a little early, a lot of scholarships don't come through this early, but if you know, or if, I'm talking to parents here, if you've got a perk through work and your child's going to get a perk and that now, it's required, disclose it. And then relatives or outside help. Again, here, if grandma has said, I am definitely going to give $10,000, you notice up here, this is only for the 23-24 school year. I'm definitely doing that no matter what happens, then put it down. But just because grandma has a 529 and you have no idea how she wants to use that, then I wouldn't put it. Be honest, but don't inflate or overshare. So that student resources page always creates a lot of questions. Then we're into student assets, same thing as parents. This is a little funky because they don't require this question, but there's no yes or no, right? So if your child has investments, and that means not checking and savings, but actual investments, like CDs, stocks, bonds. And if they have a trust, I'm going to click both so you see the pages. You're gonna need to click it, and then just give the values. What's the value in the checking and savings? Current value. If they have an investment account, what's the value in that? And some kids have, bought a few stocks and they're playing around in the stock market, whatever it is, right? Put that in there. And if they are a beneficiary of a trust, which we said yes, we'll just say, okay, that's $10,000. Put that in there, save and continue. Then they're going to ask a few questions about the trust, which, some of this I don't totally disagree with now that you've disclosed this. And this is an appeal if this trust is not available, which they ask, which I think is nice. Some trusts are written that the beneficiary can't access those funds till the age of 30. Well, then that's a no, right? They're not 30 while they're in college, but mark whatever is applicable and then answer their questions. So it was grandma's trust, not the parents, and what type of trust it is. If you don't know, find out, and if it's other, put other. So that's what you need to do there. And then, does the student have retirement? Most kids don't, and it's not required. So I would, unlike the parent, I would leave this. Don't follow what I did here. Don't hit either one, because it's none of their business and it's not part of the equation. And I've seen some kids that have started Roth IRAs, which is awesome, which is a retirement, but I would leave it blank. It's not required, and I would leave it blank. If that bothers you, then hit yes and disclose, but it's not part of the equation. So we're in the last two, we're really in the home stretch. So there's a section called special circumstances at the end. So unlike the FAFSA, you can talk about your situation. The FAFSA doesn't have a space for this, so you have to reach out to the schools. My advice is to mark none, even if you have some of these things, because again, you want to be in the driver's seat. You want to reach out to them after you get the award letter and say, so by the way, my income changed or whatever it is. Because if you write a nice little paragraph here, and a lot of people, when they write their paragraphs, they get kind of emotional, and it's not done in the best way to state your case and help the college really recalculate. You're in a position, like I said earlier, you're more in the driver's seat to say, you know what, I need to share some stuff, and you were generous in this package or whatever the situation is, but I need you to recalculate. So we encourage you to put none here. And then what might come up, and with a couple of my schools and my sample family, it did. There's a bank of questions that are called supplemental questions, and different colleges can say, hey, I want you to ask question 1 and question 91. And so what'll happen is you'll get this section, you click continue, and then it'll say who requested it and what the question is. And I'm a broken record here, but you'll notice these are not required questions. So the college can always reach out and say, hey, Johnny, we really need the answer to this question before we give you aid, and then you can answer it. But they're not required questions, so you don't have to answer them. So now you've gotten through the FAFSA. The CSS profile. You'll see at the bottom you can review your application. You used to be able to produce a nice little PDF, and I used to tell people, hey, walk away, look at it the next day. This one's a little different, and you notice there's a data check. So mine, they're kind of warning me like, hey, you didn't put your social security number. It's not going to stop the submission. I meant not to do that, but you might get other things here that are stuff you need to go back and fix. If you do, then go ahead and do that. In my situation, I don't. And then you get into application review, and all that is you can go into each section. So I recommend doing this, and maybe even if you are married, get your spouse to do it the next day, or you walk away and do it the next day, as long as you're not up against any deadlines, just so that you've got fresh eyes or a new set of eyes. Just, you might catch something. So that's how that works. So let me hop back over to my slides, and we are almost done here. Okay, so let's go back in here. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like at the end. So remember too, if you get through this and then your child decided, you know what, I'm not going to apply to Cornell, go back and take it off. You don't want to pay for it. Or, you know what, I think I am going to apply to, XYZ school, Whitman in Washington, where I am. Well, make sure you go back and add it, right? So look this list over. They're going to give you a nice little total, and you're going to have to pull out that credit card before you hit submit, and you'll make that payment. If you have the fee waiver, like I talked about earlier, then you'll have that, and that's great. So now we can all take a deep breath. I can take a break here. Maybe I'll just take a quick drink of water.
Peg, you did an awesome job in covering all that stuff, let me tell you.
Well, I really hope that I'm not, wasn't too fast for people. But so let's just wrap up here. So what are your next steps? Obviously, your next steps are to get these forms submitted. So you might be in one of these 3 buckets. You might be like, oh my God, this was amazing. Now I'm ready to roll. That's great. Look up those priority financial aid deadlines and get that form in. If you're like, you know what? I'm feeling good about this, but I'd love to have a set of eyes on this to look it over. We can help you out with that. We'll, in our follow-up email, we'll send you some information how you can book an hour with one of our experts. We'll have the coupon code down there. You can save 15% if that's something that supports you. And if this was great, but it's still overwhelming, you can also book an hour. So wherever you are, we're very happy to support you. And I want to end, since I started with my whale picture, I want to end, this is my dog, Ashling. And, you know, hopefully this information answered some questions you had, gives you a visual of the form. So when you get in there, it's not completely unknown. And it just cut some of the complexity and stress out. So I really hope that from the bottom of my heart. And Ashling's here to say goodbye, and I hope everybody has a great night. And we do have a few more, we got 4 minutes. I want to respect everybody's time. Were there some questions that saw over and over again that we can kind of hit for people?
Without a doubt. Yeah. So one of the big questions that kept coming up was this whole custodial, non-custodial side of things when it comes to the FAFSA or the CSS profile. Folks were confused as to, you know, how they needed to handle that, you know, and so without a doubt, folks, you have to go with your custodial parent. I mean, that's the one. So let's just deal with the FAFSA, custodial parent and the child. With the CSS profile, it depends on the school, but the vast majority of schools are going to require both. And so, you know, in that particular case, what we're talking about is the custodial parent is going to use the student's College Board login details. That's really important that you know that. And the non-custodial parent is actually going to have to set up their own account. Believe it or not, you set it up as though you're almost a student. You got to put your date of birth in there and all that kind of wild and crazy stuff. So that's the way that works. So that question came up. There was questions about separation and you know, the fact with any of this that they both recognize a legal separation. However, and Peg, you can support me on this one. If you still live in the same household, then in that particular case, you're still considered married, and they're going to expect you to put.
Those are the rules in the financial aid world. And somebody put in the chat, which I'm going to break my own rules and answer it just because it's tied to what we're asking. You can submit the FAFSA and then submit the profile. They don't need to be in a certain order. I mean, one of our colleagues, Bill Rabbit, always says to submit the FAFSA, you need a beer or a glass of wine, and submit the CSS, you need the whole bottle or a 6 of beer because it's a lot longer. So you might, you know, depending on your personality, if you go to the CSS first, the FAFSA is going to seem like a dream, or you can get through the FAFSA and then go to the CSS. And if you're ahead of your deadlines, you don't have to cram it all in one night. It's just really what works best for you guys.
Yeah, another question that came up was about 401ks or retirement accounts. So just so we're clear on that, what you're doing is that you're listing the amount that you're contributing, and it's for that. So for example, 2023, it's on your 2021 W-2, box 12, it shows you what that dollar amount is. That gets added back to your income, and unfortunately that bumps your expected family contribution. What they're not looking for is the value that's sitting in those accounts. So don't make that mistake. I mean, if you put that in, what you've just done is you've hurt yourself because you put too much information in there.
Yeah, the income is what you're saving right out of your paycheck, right? And if you're self-employed, you're doing maybe a little differently. That's the income piece. The value of those accounts, that's on the other side of the equation, right? That's the asset. So that's what they're asking on the CSS, but definitely should not be included on the FAFSA. So that can be confusing. And just another little nuance, if you are saving in a 401k, so for example, I'm out in Seattle, right? The University of Washington requires their employees to be in their retirement. They have no choice. So if your employer, if it's not voluntary, then you don't have to disclose that. And it shouldn't show up on your W-2 in box 12. So that's kind of a nice perk. If that's not the norm, usually you're choosing to save.
So Peg, there was another question that came up about whether you own a family business under 100 employees. So the answer is that on the FAFSA, currently, you do not need to list that. In the CSS profile, however, you do. You have to put a valuation on that. And by the way, that's going to change in the future with the new legislation that's been passed.
Yeah, with the FAFSA next year, you're going to have to disclose it. That exclusion is going to go away. Just think on the CSS profile, they pretty much ask about everything. They pretty much do. You can only answer the required questions, and then they'll find their information about your business, but they're going to ask about it, and you should always be honest.
There's also questions about the whole FSA ID. The fact is, again, it's the same deal with because we're talking about the FAFSA only in this case. So you've got an ID for the student, and you've got an ID for the custodial parent, and both of those are necessary for you to be able to electronically sign it at the end. In fact, it takes that kind of information even to get into the FAFSA, doesn't it?
Well, you can go in under the student's date of birth and social security number, but you can't submit it without it. And if you're married, only one parent needs to get it. And then, like we said, save it, because you're going to need that 4 times as you're submitting. And then if you say you have twins like I do, and I did when they were going through this, they each had to have, it might not have existed back then, to be honest, but each of them, if you have twins, and I know we probably have people on here because we have a lot of people on here, they each need an FSA ID. The parent one will be used on both because it's, again, you e-signing. So that's how that works. Why don't we hit one more? I'll let you pick.
Well, actually, Peg, let me ask you this question. Somebody asked whether or not there's going to be some kind of a share of all the questions that were asked for everybody. I don't know the answer to that.
I think with Zoom, they're supposed to be captured. If that shows up in the recording, I'm not totally sure, but I know it does get captured. So if you get the recording, so again, if anybody hopped on late, tomorrow you're going to get the recording, the slides, the PDF of the 7 mistakes on each form. And then we'll also send you some information if you're interested in booking a meeting. If you watch that recording and you don't see the Q&A, you can always send us an email at support@collegeaidpro.com. And actually that'll be good, because then I'll understand, hey, it doesn't show up. My throat's dry. I'm sorry for talking so much. So let us know, but that should be, that should be in there. So do you want to hit one more question before we hop off here, Dan? I'll let you.
Yeah, just a quick reminder. So retirement accounts, Roth IRAs, all the values and things that are in those accounts, cash value, life insurance, and annuities, all of those are non-assessable assets. They don't show up in your investments, so don't put them in there. Again, any contributions you do have to put in there. That question came up time after time of people asking about that.
And just to complicate it a little, if you have a non-retirement annuity, that is a part on the CSS profile, but it is not on the FAFSA, and cash value life insurance isn't in either one. One other thing I want to share is that we have something called office hours, and I'm going to put it in the chat. This is completely free. And right now it's every other Monday. We might increase the frequency of it. So I just put it in the chat. Go ahead and click on that. You can sign up. It's a one-time recurring webinar. Once you're signed up, you'll get reminders. People like Dan and myself and our other colleagues that are college experts, we hop on, and for a solid hour, we'll sit there and answer as many questions as we can. We can't answer questions that are deep dives into your situation if that's not applicable, but a lot of the questions people ask, we can address that. So we're really trying to create a community where you guys can get the help you need. You all got an email as a registrant encouraging you to set up a free MyCap account. I really encourage you to do that. When you get in there, you'll see your EFCs, and that helps you. A few times in here, I said, don't put more than your EFC. So you want to make sure you have an idea of what your EFCs are. And I'll just put a quick link to how you set up that account in case you didn't see that email. And then
Peg, let me throw one last one in.
Yeah, one more, and then we'll.
This
I
is it.
want to respect people's time. It's
Absolutely.
your call, Dan. Whichever question is going to be the final one.
All right. Well, here it is. People are asking, what about consumer debt? Credit card debt, auto debt, home debt. Any of that kind of debt. Does that matter to the colleges? No, they don't take any of that into consideration. The only exception is maybe you've got a bunch of medical debt, and that would be something that you would do in the future when you're, appealing your situation to try to make them aware of what's going on.
Yeah, they did have a question in there about student loans, but I would absolutely share it. Dan's right. Usually we've noticed they really don't take it into account, but you can share it. If you're appealing and reaching out, you can share. You know, I've really noticed credit card debt, they don't have a lot of sympathy for, but I mean, and I'll just say this to end this, that colleges don't really care if and when you retire. So that's something that's our mission at College Aid Pro, is to educate parents. So you're informed consumers in this process, so you don't make decisions. It's hard because it's your kids and your money. It's a very emotional process. Dan and I have both been through it. Our kids are through it, right? We get it. But the more informed you are, the better you can talk to these colleges. And as I've said a couple of times, you're more in the driver's seat. And that's what we're really trying to help you guys get to that point, because if you don't understand, then, you know, money can be left on the table and you can pay more than you really should be paying. So on that note, I know we have a lot of East Coast families tonight, so it's time for you guys really to eat dinner if you haven't eaten yet. So I'm seeing a lot of thank yous. So I really, Dan and I both hope this was an hour really well spent. We hope we opened your eyes, and that you can get into those forms now, and you will get them done. And then the next step of the process will be responding to the colleges for the information they need. But at least you'll get through that step. And, you know, if you're in our CAP community, we're doing webinars, free webinars on each step of the process. So definitely watch your emails. We'll be doing one on appeals and sharing the best way to do that. So we know the journey you're on, and we really want to support you each step of it. So we will let you go. We're 6 minutes over. So everybody have a wonderful evening, and good night to you too, Dan.
Yeah, good night, everybody.